Welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're going to dive into some really mind-bending ideas from a mathematician and philosopher named Vasily Nalimov. He had this incredible vision of the universe, not as some kind of perfect, predictable clock, but as something spontaneous, creative, and, at its very core, built on probability.
All right, to get our heads around this, let's start with a question that seems simple, but, well, it's really not. Think about a word like freedom, or knowledge, or even love. When you use a word like that, what are you actually talking about? Is it some solid dictionary definition, or is the meaning a little more fuzzy?
We tend to think of language as this super precise tool, right? But Nalimov, he saw something else going on. He realized that underneath it all, there's this constant, complex dance of meaning. We're always making these tiny, silent adjustments in our heads to understand each other. And why? Because words aren't just rigid boxes with one definition inside. They're more like clouds of potential.
So that brings us to our first huge idea. What if we stop looking at language as a set of hard and fast rules? What if we see it instead as this giant field of probabilities? A place where meaning isn't fixed, but is actually being created in real time. Okay, so think of it this way. On one side, you've got the old-school traditional view, right? Language is like a logical machine, with words like bricks in a wall. Each one has its place. But Nalimov, he came along with this totally different idea. He said, hey, the fact that words can mean different things, that's not a flaw, that's the whole point. That ambiguity is what lets us escape just repeating the same old logical loops. It's how we create something truly new. He called it a non-Gödelian system, basically a system that's open, one that isn't trapped by its own rules.
And he gave this revolutionary idea a name, probabilistic semantics. It sounds complicated, but the core concept is pretty cool. The meaning of a word isn't like a single dot on a map. Nope, it's more like a probability distribution, a curve. Some meanings are way more likely than others, and it all depends on, who's talking, who's listening, and the entire situation you're in.
So you might be thinking, okay, if language is so fuzzy, how on earth do we ever manage to understand each other? How do we come up with new ideas? Well, Nalimov found the engine for all this, and it wasn't in some dusty old logic book. He found it in statistics, of all places.
He took something called the Bayesian syllogism and adapted it brilliantly. And the basic idea behind it is actually super simple. Your new belief, your new understanding, it's just your old belief multiplied by some new piece of evidence. That's it. Every single conversation you have, every new thing you learn, it's constantly updating this internal probability map you have of the world. Okay, so mathematically it looks like this. Now, don't get hung up on the symbols. It's the idea that counts. That first part, that's just our old belief, the whole field of meanings we already have for something. The second part, that's the filter. It's the new context, the new information. And when you put them together, you get the result, which is a brand new, updated understanding. It's literally a formula for how we learn and create. But here's where things get really interesting. This is where Nalimov takes this huge leap. He looked at this elegant little model and thought, what if this isn't just about words? What if this describes something way bigger? What if this is actually a blueprint for how human consciousness itself works, for its spontaneity?
And that brings us to his incredible map of consciousness. This isn't a picture of a brain as some closed-off logical computer. No, this is a model of an open, dynamic, and truly spontaneous system that's always in contact with a much, much larger reality.
So Nalimov saw our consciousness as having different layers. You've got the foundation, right? The body, our physical self. Then, deep down, below our normal everyday awareness, you have what he called the cellars of consciousness. This is the subconscious. It's where all those deep, ancient archetypes and powerful images hang out, influencing us in ways we don't even realize.
Then you've got the ego. That's our everyday logical self, the face we show the world. But, and this is the absolute key, Nalimov's model has an opening, a connection to what he called the transpersonal level. Think of it as a link to a cosmic consciousness, a universal field where all possible meanings, all potential realities are just waiting, unexpressed. And this is so important. Real creativity, those aha moments of insight, what Nalimov called spontaneity, they don't come from our logical ego just shuffling things around. No way. They are these creative sparks, these impulses that flow down from that transpersonal cosmic level. That's the source of the new evidence in that Bayesian formula we talked about. It's how we get brand new ideas, not just recycled ones.
Okay, so from language to consciousness, Nalimov scales this idea up one final time. He applies the exact same logic to the biggest canvas of all, the evolution of the entire cosmos.
So in his view, evolution isn't just a bunch of random accidents, blindly building something out of nothing. It's something else. He saw it as a probabilistic unpacking of a potential that was already there. It's like the entire blueprint for life. Every possible form already exists in this vast semantic field. And evolution? That's just the process of that potential becoming real.
This totally flips our whole idea of chance on its head. In the old clockwork universe view, chance is just an error. It's noise in the system. But in Nalimov's world, chance is the sacred mechanism. It's the creative force itself. It's what picks and chooses from that infinite menu of possibilities and decides what gets to become real. It's not a mistake. It's the engine of revelation. So let's bring this all back down to earth. What does this mean for us living our lives? If our world really is built on probability, spontaneity, and uncertainty, then how are we supposed to deal with that? Well, Nalimov's answer isn't to throw our hands up in despair or to desperately cling to some false sense of certainty. His whole philosophy gives us a new mission, a powerful one. Embrace the fuzziness. Our job is to act with awareness, to use both our logic and our intuition to find our way through a world where things aren't set in stone, where every outcome is just a field of probabilities.
So let's just recap the big picture here. Nalimov's incredible insight is that you see the same pattern everywhere, at every single scale. That fuzziness that makes our language creative, that's the same spontaneity that lets our minds have truly new ideas. And that very same creative force is what allows the entire universe to evolve, to constantly unpack new realities from this infinite field of what's possible.
And that leaves us with one last really big question to chew on. If the universe truly is this infinite field of potential, and if reality is just what gets unpacked through some kind of probabilistic filter, well then our consciousness, our choices, our awareness, we are part of that filter. We aren't just sitting back and watching a pre-written movie. We are active participants in this spontaneous creative universe. So the real question becomes, what are we choosing to make real?